Hello and welcome to Liberty Nation's LNTV. I'm your host, Mark Angelides. We have to find out what is happening in Portland. Here to discuss, Mr. Scott DiCosenza. Welcome, Scott.
Hi, Mark.
Scott, give us the rundown. What's happening?
Well, basically, a number of protesters, rioters, whatever you want to call them, have been surrounding the federal courthouse in Portland on a nightly basis. We're coming up on 2 months of that activity, whereby each night they seem to launch attacks against the courthouse, and federal employees, police, troops, whatever you want to call them, are responsible for preventing those folks from gaining access to and destroying. And it seems like they want to burn it down, quite frankly, without the support of any state or local law enforcement.
Why is it that building?
I think it's to provoke a reaction because they think they'll get violence done against them from the Trump administration. That's a bit speculative, but that is my guess.
You mentioned that the people within the building are the ones tasked with protecting it, and the local police, for example, are not getting involved in trying to stop this. Are they allowed to do that?
The mayor is not allowing them. Ted Wheeler and the governor of the state police is not allowing them to do it. So they have, they're sworn law enforcement in a city in the United States of America, Mark. And people are committing felonies right out in the open. It's plain to see. You can check Twitter every morning and see many videos of people launching explosive projectiles or setting fires and trying to burn the place down.
Scott, clearly the lack of reaction from Mayor Wheeler here is political. He was recorded walking through the crowd attempting to show solidarity, I suppose. Even got himself tear gassed for his efforts. But the crowd, the mob, didn't seem to welcome him with open arms.
Well, Mark, that's right. And I think that this is part of the story of Portland is the story of what's not being told. It's the story of we keep hearing about the protests are peaceful or mostly peaceful. Charles Manson was mostly nonviolent. It was just on some of the days of his life that he was extraordinarily violent. And most of the protesters, most of the time, are entirely peaceful. It's just that every single night for almost 2 months now, some protesters have surrounded the federal courthouse and attacked it.
It's funny that you should use the Charlie Manson analogy there, because that kind of ties in with something you mentioned earlier with it's clearly that they're trying to do something political to provoke a reaction from Donald Trump, which I'm sure our audience knows. This is pretty much what Charlie Manson and the Manson family tried to do. They're trying to start a race war by framing black people for murders. And they were trying to provoke some kind of reaction within the populace and within the government. So it's quite a befitting analogy, I think, Scott. Scott, what needs to change?
It is all about that narrative, Mark. One of the later developments is this idea that there are these Portland moms that are going to be on the front lines, and yet we see instances where those moms, in order to paint the narrative, of course, by the way, that there are moms standing in between the brutish federal authorities and the peaceful protesters, but we've seen those mobs, those quote unquote moms, tear down those, try to tear down the courthouse. So they're Antifas as well, at least some of them. But I want to say one thing about that, Mark. There have been both statements and videos that seem to show federal police officers arresting people or taking them into custody without what we would think of as probable cause. Now, whether, we'll have to wait and see what court filings show. But it seems like the federal police are, in fact, regularly violating the rights of some of the Portland protesters. So I don't want this presentation to put forth the notion that there's nothing going wrong with how the federal authorities are behaving in Portland. I just wanted to remove the fiction from the notion that there are just peaceful protesters in Portland and federal authorities are somehow out of control.
That's good to know, Scott. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks.
And thanks to you at home.
go deeper on the topic discussed in this video, head on over to one of these links here or go to our Liberty Nation Roku channel. Thanks so much for watching, and don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell for Liberty.